the song with your heart. Play the song with your heart.
And one time. What is good, YouTube? This is your boy Aaron.
It's Brian.
And this is the Courtside View podcast. And we are back today and we are discussing the divisional round games for the NFL playoffs. Now, let's off rip. We already know my Packers. We got to discuss them first. We lost as expected. Well, what I didn't expect was the way that we lost. I was very surprised that this was a close game. I didn't think this was going to be a very competitive game, but to each his own. The Packers were able to stay competitive. They had this game pretty much won up until the fourth quarter, where Jordan Love he threw a pick, which was unfortunately it was a wide open. The tight end was wide open. He just missed targeting him, bounced it off his hands, and it was an interception. And then obviously the one at the end where he turned into Brett Favre, and I don't know what he was looking at. He thought he could just beam it to Christian Watson, but at the end of the day, you still have to make sure that your footwork is all the way there. And ultimately, it didn't work, and it got picked off by I think it was either Greenlaw or I think it was Greenlaw picked it off, and that sealed the game. That sealed the Packers' fate. So my reaction to the game, I was I have to say this: the beauty of football is that it's one of the few sports where you can appreciate the entire season as it is. What do I mean by that? So, like, for instance, you're rooting for a team and they gone through ups and downs to the season, right? And ultimately they make the playoffs, and that was probably a great season for them, the fact that they made the playoffs. But then they upset a higher seed, and then the next round, they're competitive against the number one seed. And so my mind was on a couple of different places. On one hand, I was like, wow, we've really improved just this entire year. I didn't think that from the start to the middle that this team was capable of competing against arguably the best team in the league in the 49ers. So on one hand, I was like, I'm proud, but then the other hand, I was disappointed at the conclusion of the game because we had the game in our hands. We had it in our hands, but because of just how young we are and the fact that the defense, for all the good that is done, is still not good enough to carry the offense. And see, Jordan Love, that fourth quarter, he got tight. He got nervous. I don't know what was going on in his head, but he just couldn't get it done when it mattered most. And that's how we lost the game. The running game was phenomenal. Aaron Jones, he did his thing for the most part. The offensive line, I couldn't believe it. Like, the offensive line was sensational. Nick Bosa couldn't really do much that game. Eric Armstead, Chase Young, who's looking like a bust right now. They couldn't do anything against this offensive line. I was completely shocked about that. And I'm not going to lie. We're going to get into this later on, maybe later on in a week or something like that. But I remember I talked about how, like, if the 49ers meet up against the Baltimore Ravens again, they'll be ready. After this game, I might have to take back what I said, because the way that the Packers were able to dominate the line of scrimmage, I think I may have overestimated the 49ers and just how good their defense is, because the way that it's looking, they can be had. You can move the ball against them, but you have to have a certain quarterback, and you have to have a good play caller who can sort of exploit the deficiencies of the 49ers defense. overall, was it a disappointing ending? Absolutely, but we can build on it in the future. And by the way, today Joe Barry is finally gone.
Oh, really?
Finally, this man is gone for good. He's gone for good, and it's a great day, Brian. Oh my God, he was holding us hostage, trying, like he trying to fool us, thinking that he's a good DC because he had 2 great weeks when it mattered most. Well, you didn't fool me, sir. I know your game, and I'm glad Matt LaFleur pulled the plug and said you got to go. So hopefully we can get a good DC in there, and that's that because my God, the amount of bad DCs that we had, defensive coordinators that we had, is atrocious. Like the offense, the quarterbacks have always had to overcome. I just want 1 year where the defense is elite. Can I get 1 year where my defense is great and the quarterback doesn't have to overcome, have to carry the team on his back? Like I just wish that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. We'll get a little later on sort of Brock Purdy and the 49ers, but I just want to get your reaction first.
So I had a feeling before the game. I said, I think the 49ers are going to mess around, not lose, but make the game closer than what it has to be. And the Packers played really well. They were able to run the ball. I think they had like 140 rushing yards or something like that.
Yeah, maybe.
So, and the Niners, they were one of the best teams against the run throughout the season. So I wasn't expecting Aaron Jones to go out there like he had that 53-yard run, and I thought that was going to really put him in position to like seal the game. But
Hmm.
alas, the interceptions happened, and yeah, I wasn't as impressed with the 49ers, like you said, with that performance because a lot of people thought they were just going to go in there and dominate,
Hmm.
especially against this young team and first time QB in this type of environment.
Hmm.
So yeah, I thought they was going to beat them by 2 scores. I was wrong, but yeah, the Niners currently and they lost Debo in the well, he may or may not play. They say he's
Yeah,
50-50 for next
shady.
game,
Yeah.
and the Niners record without Debo, I believe, is 8-9.
Hmm.
So that's or 9-8, something like that. So that's a little significant because once you take Debo out the mix, you saw how the offense looked. It was just like more like a traditional offense. They ran the ball. They got some flash, but when Debo was involved, then they can do all type of things
Hmm.
offensively with the scheme and everything. Kyle Shanahan. So yeah, it was a good season for the Packers. You can definitely build off that.
Hmm.
The Packers had nothing to hang their head on because they wasn't even supposed to get that far, honestly. And they look like a team that's been there before, honestly. So yeah, I hate the Packers, but salute to them.
Yeah, you're right about it. It's just, you know what? It's funny because as a Cowboys fan and as a Packers fan, we know what it's like to continuously get owned by the 49ers, continuously losing to the one team that, for whatever reason, we just can't get over the hump. And this time, I'm not going to say it's the worst loss that I've ever felt as a Packers fan because I feel like the worst loss was the last time we played the 49ers. And that was with Aaron
Yeah,
Rodgers. That was the worst loss because we had the defense was on 1,000 that game. Uh Special teams just awful. By the way, the kicker, Carson, who's the younger brother of the kicker for the Raiders. My God, like the
yeah.
I didn't
How does it get?
notice,
How we use nepotism in the NFL?
especially a kicker though, especially a kicker. Like that's such an important position, but I didn't know how bad he was in college. Like I just didn't think much of it. But when people talked about how like he wasn't very accurate from like
He
50,
was, I think his career percentage in college was like 70.
70%. I didn't know how bad he was. I didn't know how inconsistent he was. So when that happened and people talked about it, I was like, Of course. Like it's like it's weird when it comes to the Packers, it's always something like that happens that shouldn't happen. Like it's just something weird that always happens against the 49ers or against a team that's like elite or something like that. Like like special teams like screws up or it could be a fumble or something. Like it's always something weird that happens to us when it shouldn't actually need to happen. Like it's just I don't know. Maybe the football gods are just not on their side. But yeah, man, like the kicker misses that field goal from like 41 or something. Like it was you would think like on the regular in this day and age, a kicker like from 40 plus 40 yards would be automatic. But he just
Yeah,
he just couldn't make it for whatever reason. And that I was disappointed. But I'm not going to say that lost us the game. What lost us the game was the turnovers and the simple fact that Jordan Love, for whatever reason, when it mattered most in the fourth quarter, they weren't able to drive the ball down the field and get another score. And another thing, the officiating. I'm not gonna lie. Some of that officiating, bro. Hey
mm,
man, spotting us the ball twice. Twice.
yeah. I was
First.
like, that's a horrible spot.
Oh, oh my God. Listen, at the end of the day, when you're on the road, you're going to get screwed a couple of times. It doesn't matter what happened, you're going to get screwed. You're not at home, you're on the road. So the refs are going to favor the home team more times than not.
Little bit of home cooking.
Obviously. But in this instance, oh my God, did they get favorable call after favorable call? So here's the deal. Spotting the foot. It was clearly obvious we got the first down
Yeah,
around the red zone area. But the refs were like, nah, it's not enough evidence or something. Like we're gonna get, you guys didn't get it clear. I'm like, what? And the fact that Matt LaFleur didn't challenge it, I was mad about that. I get it, it's the first quarter, but dog, you had the opportunity to what were we had 3 points at the time. You have the opportunity to go up 2 scores. You have to challenge that. We're in the red zone area. So that was one of that, man, that could have changed the game completely if we score a touchdown on the drive because we were converting left and right. So that was huge. And then the second time, we had to challenge, we had to use one of our challenges for something so obvious. Like these
yeah,
refs were so egregious, like that twice that you didn't spot the ball correctly. Like that was I was so angry about that. And then another one where the play clock was literally at zero, and they allowed the 49ers to snap the ball,
yep.
and they got a touchdown from CMC. I'm like, come on, man. Like, what are we doing here? And those were 3 times where I'm looking at the rest, and I'm like, really? Oh yeah, number 4, not calling a what was it for Brock Purdy? Remember he
Grounding.
grounding. It was
Yeah, I would.
clearly
That was
grounding.
clearly grounding. Yeah,
So the refs missed 4 obvious calls. 4 obvious that would have changed the game completely. But I'm not gonna say that the refs was the reason we lost because there was other things that transpired in the game that prevented us from winning. We were up in the game. We could have,
yeah,
if we would have handled our business, we would have won. We were up at the end of the day. But like dropping interceptions, albeit it was raining, but at the end of the day, you got to catch it no matter what. No excuses. There was 2 times
Didn't they
where
say Brock Purdy had like 5 turnover-worthy plays or something?
he probably did. Oh, remember the one to Jennings where he threw it. Jennings had to like really reach up for it. It was like
Oh yeah.
4 guys. I think maybe 4 DBs were like in the vicinity. Maybe 4 or 3 DBs were in the vicinity, and he threw that. He threw it
I
up,
mean,
and
that was kind of an impressive throw.
it was. But at the end of the day, very risky, very
Yeah,
risky. But yeah, but the 2 interceptions that should have been caught. They should have caught that, but they didn't. One could have been a pick six. The other one, obviously it would have changed the complexion of the game. But yeah, just missed opportunity after missed opportunity. And yeah, man, I want to talk about Brock Purdy because I knew this was going to happen. I knew that the minute Brock Purdy won this game after having an atrocious 3 quarters, the narrative was going to be a certain way. Well, he won. Well, after all of the bad play that he displayed from the first 3 quarters, he was able to drive his team down the field and overcome and get his team in the end zone, and they won. I knew this was going to happen. Listen, I give Brock Purdy credit for being able to overcome the circumstances. Although he didn't play particularly well the first 3 quarters, but he was still able to get his team down the field to win the game. I give him credit for that. But here's the thing that blows my mind when it comes to Brock Purdy. We're still in this sort of debate, right? Arguments between the Brock Purdy defenders and people like me who are saying y'all are sort of overrating Brock Purdy a bit too much. And I feel like there's this disconnect of exactly what people are trying to say about Brock Purdy, specifically to people like me and you. So I'm going to repeat this. I've said this before, but I don't want my words to be misconstrued, misinterpreted. Brock Purdy is a solid QB. He deserved to be in the MVP conversation. Why? Because the criteria normally in most years when it comes to QBs is you have amazing stats, and also QB wins are very important. So that's what they value when it comes to QBs in the MVP discussion, and he deserved to be in the discussion. Now, with that being said, that does not make Brock Purdy an elite QB. That does not make Brock Purdy better than, in my opinion, 15 other QBs in the league today. Brock Purdy is a solid QB. Brock Purdy has been tremendous this year. What Kyle Shanahan has asked him to do, he has delivered. Great. But here's where I have a problem with the discourse of Brock Purdy. It seems like when a lot of these people who are breaking down film are just praising Brock Purdy, a lot of his film I've seen from so many other QBs doing it today, but they don't get the acknowledgement from these people. You get what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
like, for instance, when they bloviate, when they say, "Oh my God, Brock Purdy, look how he's going through his progression." Like, really? I've seen that from
Like, shouldn't every QB be doing that?
Look how his eyes are manipulating this linebacker, this safety. You know? Like, come on now. Stuff like that blows my mind because I've seen it from so many other QBs. And then here's another thing. I'll give you an example. Louis Riddick, he's on Get Up, ESPN Get Up. He was on the defense of Brock Purdy, and he couldn't understand why there's so much criticism about Brock Purdy. Why are people criticizing him so much? And he was like, what second-year guy has gotten so much pushback, so much criticism for playing the QB? And you know who comes to mind, Brian?
Who?
Lamar Jackson. His second year when he won the MVP. And see, this is where I get frustrated with this discourse. All of these defenders. It's like, he's a 7th-round pick. Like, why is there so much good? See, they use that 7th-round pick excuse, right? Oh, he's a 7th-round pick. This is his second year starting. We didn't expect this from him. Then why are you praising him this much for doing the simplest stuff, the minimum stuff? You get what I'm saying? But with Lamar Jackson, when he won the MVP, but ultimately lost in the divisional round to the Tennessee Titans, he got chastised. He got criticized for losing that game. And it was his second year in the league. They were talking about as long as you keep Lamar Jackson in the pocket and force him to throw the football, you're in good hands, right? That was
Right.
the whole thing about Lamar is if you keep him in the pocket and don't let him use his legs, you'll have a great chance of winning. Interesting, right? Interesting. And see, there's a lack of consistency when it comes to when we try to criticize certain players. And with Brock Purdy, for example, I feel like a lot of these people defending him are not understanding what we're saying. They feel like we're saying he's trash. They feel like we're saying that he's not good. We're not saying that at all. We're just saying stop overrating him. Stop making everything he do such this amazing thing that we've never seen before. Like, bro, I've seen this from so many quarterbacks. They're saying, "Oh, what's wrong with him having all these elite players around him?" There's nothing wrong with it at all. But let's acknowledge that he needs everything to be perfect in order to excel. Can we at least acknowledge that? Can we at least acknowledge that he's not talented enough to overcome? Can we at least acknowledge that? But Aaron, he didn't have Debo during the game. He was able to overcome. He still had Christian McCaffrey. He still had Brandon Ayuk. He still had George Kittle. He still had that Jennings guy who's pretty solid as well, who's making
Ron
plays.
Jennings.
Yeah, man. And the O-line is not the worst in the world. They do a great, even though we were kind of making it, uncomfortable for him. Some of that is on him, but we were kind of making it uncomfortable for him. But at the end of the day, it's not like he doesn't have anything to work with. And the fact that these defenders keep coming out of here and thinking that we're saying he's trash, that's just not the case. I'm just saying that, listen, first of all, watch the film and also stop overrating all of the things that he's doing. Because at the end of the day, I've seen so many other quarterbacks do the same exact thing he's doing. And they're not getting the praise. They're not getting the acknowledgement from the media and from the fans. That's all I'm saying. What about you?
All you have to do is ask these people, the Brock Purdy truthers that think he should be compared to the likes of Mahomes and Josh Allen and all of them. All you have to do is ask them one simple question. Would you make Brock Purdy the highest paid QB in the league right now? Most of them will say, well, the team wouldn't be as good if we paid Brock Purdy. So would you, based off skill and production, would you make Brock Purdy the highest paid QB? Most people will say no.
Nope. And then
Brock Purdy is he's closer to Jimmy G than he is to Mahomes.
Facts. I'll also say this. If you take all the 32 starting QBs, right, and put them in a draft, where would Brock Purdy be picked? Where would he be picked?
Not top 10, I'll tell you that much.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So
maybe top 15, maybe.
Maybe. Like, because I'm looking at Brock Purdy in my QB rankings. I would have him 16 or 17. That's where I would have him. And in a draft, I might have him further than that. Seriously, honestly, that's how I feel about Brock Purdy, man. And people wanna say, oh, you're hating. Like, no, that's just what it is. Like, Brock Purdy doesn't have a strong arm at all. His arm is pretty. Can we say it's average? Like, is it average? I would say it's probably, I guess, average. Like, he doesn't have a strong arm at all. Like, what Brock Purdy is a more athletic Tua. That's what he is. That's really what he is. He's a more athletic Tua. And that's just how I look at Brock Purdy right now. That's just how I think. He's a more athletic Tua. I think he's a little bit better than Tua, obviously. But that's his ceiling to me. Now, do I think that Brock Purdy could possibly one day be great? There's a possibility. I mean, I remember Tom Brady his first few years. He was a game manager. Nobody was calling him elite. But they won. They won, and eventually 2007 came around, and he he was looked at as an elite QB. And could it possibly Brock Purdy be that? Maybe he might be. Maybe he might be close to elite. Maybe he might be just really good. Who knows? But right now, I'm not going to call him elite. I think he's a solid QB. I think you can win a Super Bowl with him. Like I've seen Joe
Yeah.
Flacco win a Super Bowl. I've seen Nick Foles win a Super Bowl. I've seen countless of QBs that are on the level of Brock Purdy win a Super Bowl. But that doesn't mean that he's elite. That doesn't mean he's on the same tier as some of the QBs that I've named in the past, like the Justin Herberts, like the Josh Allens, like the Lamars, etc. I just want people to realize that. Yes, he's a solid QB. He's had a great year, but we can separate those things. Just because you have a great year doesn't mean you're all of a sudden elite. Like you can separate the two. And
Right.
until I see consistency, until I see where he starts to overcome, where he starts to do more than what the offense is asked from him, then it is what it is. It is what it is. Is there anything else you want to talk about with Brock Purdy?
My stance on Brock Purdy has been stated numerous times. I just don't agree with putting him in the conversation with these upper echelon QBs because he's playing in probably the most QB friendly system in the league.
Mm-hmm.
That's just what it is. He's no Mahomes. He's no Josh Allen. He's no Joe Burrow.
No Lamar. No Justin Herbert. No Dak.
Yeah, he's not any of those guys.
No Jalen Hurts.
Congratulations. I mean, he did make the NFC Championship game 2 years in a row. His first 2 years starting. That's a great accomplishment. But we can't ignore how talented the team is in order to prop up. Like, are we forgetting that Christian McCaffrey was an MVP candidate?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't understand, man.
Right. Exactly.
You know that quote where Jim Harbaugh said people were born on third and think they hit a triple?
Yeah.
That's what 49ers fans treating Brock Purdy like.
Yeah, man, that's a great quote. But yeah, I just look at Brock Purdy right now. If I list the QBs, you go Mahomes at 1, you go. This is just me listing off. It's no, it's not in order, but Mahomes, Lamar, Josh. Let's go. Burrow, Herbert, CJ, Dak, Hurts, Love, Kyler, Kirk, Rodgers, Stafford, Goff. Who am I missing? I forget who I'm missing. I know I'm missing some people, but you get the idea. But like it's about 16, 17 QBs that I would take over Brock Purdy right now. And then just not mentioning Trevor Lawrence, who still he can climb up to the list easily if he had better play calling and his receivers would learn how to catch better. Like, and then Justin Fields, depending on the system he goes to and if he can improve as a passer, like he has the potential as well. So there's in a QB draft, he would probably go further. So that's just how I look at it, man. That's all I gotta say. But yeah, just the 49ers, we'll get to the game Saturday against the Detroit Lions. But yeah.
Look, cold world, still a cold world. And a couple of y'all is cool, but we a little more thorough. Whole time, a little more girls. You know I spit that sick shit and it's still no cure. Hold up, loud packs.